You have to be authentic. You have to be flexible, quick on your feet, adaptable. But most important, we've got to be great communicators about the vision, where we want to go, why we want the organization to buy into it. Answer the question, what's in it for me?
Welcome to the Women Choosing Growth podcast, where we bring you practical advice and guidance on how to grow your business and achieve success in your entrepreneurial journey. We feature inspiring stories of success, challenges of growth, and lessons learned from women entrepreneurs, industry experts, and thought leaders who have been through the growing pains inevitable as an entrepreneur. Whether you are just getting started or are looking to scale up your business, our show is designed to provide you with the tools, resources, and community you need to grow your business. Join your host, Tina, a lifelong entrepreneur and business growth advisor, as we explore topics such as marketing, sales, finance, leadership, and personal growth, all tailored specifically to the needs of women entrepreneurs. So if you're ready to grow your business faster and smarter, and learn from the experiences of those who have traveled the growth path before you, then this podcast is for you. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get started.
Welcome back to another episode of Women Choosing Growth. I am your host, Tina Sue, and today we have with us a former deputy mayor of Indianapolis and former director of human services of two large urban jurisdictions, Irma Neal. She has over 30 years experience managing human service programs in the state and local government and corporate America. She possesses over 15 years experience as a private business owner, partner, and manager, offering training and consulting services to government agencies, educational institutions, and the private sector, just like you listening. The eldest of a Midwest family of 8, Irma got a crash course in how not to deal with money. From the lights being turned off to piles of unpaid bills to the cockroaches underfoot, she knew at 10 years old that she must learn about money and how it works, and it still drives her today to help others learn the ropes. Paired with her background in child services, she led a team to invent the electronic child care system called EBT. She now co-owns a leadership and financial literacy company called Onyx Rising and has written an amazing book that I have right here in my hands, Leading in Chaos: Insights to Lead Through the Storm. Her passion is to make positive differences in the lives of everyone she encounters. Today on this episode, she shares some of those crazy stories that she goes into detail in this book from a leadership perspective, but also talks about how financial literacy really does impact productivity. And it starts with you, the leader, making it a priority in your organization. So let's dive in. Welcome to another episode. I am so excited for our guest today, who is Irma Neal. She is the co-founder of Onyx Rising and author of an amazing book that we're going to talk about here in a second, Leading in Chaos. And she has owned and exited several businesses, in addition to her 3 decades of experience in government and corporate America. That is a lot of experience that we're going to unleash on our listeners today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, it's going to be very impactful. I mean, leadership and financial literacy is an interesting combination. So before we dive in, and we're going to talk about your book as well, because I think it's so amazing. Tell me how you are combining these two things between financial literacy and leadership in general. Would love to hear how that transpired.
Well, both of them inquire change management, change in behavior. And I think the intersection is with today's workforce, so many are in financial straits, credit card debt, and so they're not able to give their all to their current job because they're too busy thinking about the money problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as a company, the company's losing productivity from people because of that. And also, as a company side, we as leaders need to know how to best deal with them and tap into what they're going through to get the most out of them. So I think that's the connection. It's both about change management, behavior, and getting the most out of people.
I love that. And let's go back a couple decades to your past, which is in this book right here, Leading in Chaos. Lots of great stories that unfortunately we can't share today, but we'll share some of them. Um, but a lot of change management in your world back in,
Yes,
uh,
yes.
yeah. Do you want to share a little bit about maybe some snippets of the craziness of your,
There was a
like,
lot of
you
it,
are
and
definitely an expert in leading in chaos for sure.
yeah,
So yes.
right. Yeah, there was a lot of chaos, and there was a lot of things that I never in my lifetime would have thought that I would encounter. And I'm sure that there are leaders and HR people, when they get the book, their mouth's going to drop open and say, "Oh, wow, what, you know." But
Mhm.
within 30 days, I had a staff of over 120 people. And within the first 30 days, there were two overdoses, heroin overdoses on the job, both in the office.
Mhm.
It was an um, organization where there was a core of people who worked really hard, were really good, and kept things moving. There was about a third of the people who were just along for the ride. They did their job well enough that you wouldn't terminate them. And then there was this other third that were actively trying to undermine the whole organization. And so one of the first things I learned through this is, as when there's chaos, there's somebody benefiting from that chaos, right?
Mm. Yep.
And so part of what we have to do as leaders is identify those who are benefiting from dysfunction and being
Right.
able to deal with them. You know, a lot of times, and as I found out, and as you read in the book, it's not always the most vocal ones. I
Mm-mm.
mean,
You're
there
right.
are some passive aggressive employees or people in organizations that it takes a little while to really understand what's going on. And that's
Yes.
why we have to, as leaders and managers, why we have to take the whole person, that we have to look at the entire individual. I don't think there's many of us, even with practice, who's able to separate their personal from their work performance or whatever. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there were overdoses. There were passive aggressive people who used records to discredit me because they didn't like the change that we were putting in place. There was mental illness on full display. I mean, that's something I had to really think how to clean that up in the book because it was just so graphic and so well, you read it. I cleaned it up pretty good, but and
It was
then there
still
was
a lot.
right, 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 right. So and but out of it, the people who wanted success, the whole organization in the end bought into the vision. But it took a lot of empathy, a lot of flexibility, adaptability, being clear on what the vision is, to get those people to buy in. So, authoritarian authority is not the way to lead these days. I mean, it just is.
I'd agree.
You have no. You can tell people what to do, and they'll nod in your face. Say, "Okay, okay," and then they'll use passive aggressive behavior to destroy what you want them to do. So
Yes.
it just does not work in the long run. And it really doesn't work with the younger generation, with millennials and all that, because they're so bright and
Mm-hmm.
they can see through it. You have to be authentic, you have to be flexible, quick on your feet, adaptable, but most important, we've got to be great communicators about the vision, where we want to go, why we want the organization to buy into it. Answer the question, what's in it for me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for every
The
employee,
wisdom.
what's in it for me?
Yep.
You know, and yeah. So, and I really, when you're in it, you're really not thinking about the impact or what you do. You just getting the job done, right? And
You
I
were
will say
surviving
that,
for a while
yeah,
there.
for a while there, exactly right, exactly right.
Yeah.
But what was most rewarding is the number of people who came to help. I mean, it is really a team effort, and the people who were helpful, I just was amazed that every time I'd get down and say, I'm going to go home, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not dealing with this, I don't have to deal with this, there was somebody who stepped up, even without me knowing, some group of people who says, okay, here's the progress we're making. They were giving me pep talks, some of them, because this is the most positive change we've seen. And then the financial end of it was showing that we were being effective too, you know. So with organizations, it's all about the bottom line, the profit and loss and all that. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And for the listeners, just to give a little background, this was not a private company, but government agency. So
Yes.
hopefully, hopefully our listeners won't have some of the traumas and craziness that you share in the book. But I think you said some really key things there about like even excuse me. I think you said like a third almost. Like a third are
Mm-hmm.
like your rock stars, a third are like good employees. They're getting the thing done. They're not overly
Mm-hmm.
excelling, but you're not going to fire them. And then we've got like about a third that are actively not engaged or engaging against the company goals, right? So I think
Mm-hmm.
that even in modern times, private owned companies, that's pretty pretty realistic. Um,
Yeah, it is. In fact, I've owned 4 small businesses, and
mhm.
I did a stint in corporate America too. And it is standard across all the organizations. It's pretty standard. And some of the things I learned in government made corporate so much easier for me because I did see, by then, with all I went through in the book that I talk about, I was able to spot those who were the passive aggressive,
Mhm.
those who were not buying into the vision, who were just saying yes and then working against you to do that. So the lessons I learned in government carried over really well in corporate. In fact, I remember one of my managers saying in corporate, he was saying, "Boy, you get this, don't you? You get this." Yeah, and it was the stint in Washington D.C. that did it. I mean, I came out of there fearless.
Yeah.
There isn't anything that can be thrown at me as a business person that scares me, and it all stemmed from that
I can
populate
imagine.
from the, yeah, it all stemmed from what I went through for 3 years and 2 weeks. Notice how I got it down to the weeks?
Yeah, you're like, and exactly the last day was.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
I think so too, because in my world with the company I had the most employees was just under 200 employees, and I always said like, oh my gosh, I should write a book about the staff and the excuses and it's like every time you think, oh, we're like running smooth, then there's something that crazy goes on. But I will admittedly say, did not have half the crazy that you had. So,
Yeah. And in
yeah,
such a short period of time, too, because most of the crazy happened the first year. And then by the time I had um, did what needed to be done, then the last 2 years, it was all about honing the organization, increasing the financial profitability. And this particular agency was like a corporation in that we received a percentage from the federal government of the amount of money that we collected. And so the better we were, the bigger the budget, the more flexibility you had in terms of bringing in people or new programs or that kind of stuff. So
And
Yeah.
that honestly can translate into, our listeners, even in their small business, right? The more in
Right.
sync your staff is and aligned to the goals, like you mentioned, like you're just going to be that much more profitable for sure.
Right. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
let's talk
Yep.
about how to live through not so much your traumas. I'm hoping other people don't have overdoses in the first couple weeks of running their business. But
Mm.
that third, that third is the third that is kind of going against the company. So for our listeners who are building their businesses and maybe have a few of those, because I'm pretty sure, I mean, there's that in every company, regardless of where you're at on the growing scale. What is your advice on how to handle that as a leader?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that you have to observe first. And then secondly, uh, I've always brought them into the fold. I've always made sure that they were included as part, as not key, but on the fringes of key,
Okay.
giving them things to do toward the goal. Because one of the things I found is that the people who are the most passive aggressive and the most destructive, a lot of times it's because they feel not heard, underrepresented, and not included. You know,
Okay.
so um, so I always try to include the troublemaker. I really do, and I've done that my entire life. I try to include the troublemaker. I never will forget. I was with another organization, and I was brought in over. I was not the staff's selection. They didn't want an outsider. They wanted somebody from within to be promoted, right? And that didn't happen. So the very first day I showed up, there was a group of young women who just kind of picked me apart with their eyes and picked me apart, started talking about what they had heard, which half of it was false. And so it was real easy to see who the leader of that group was because they were the most vocal.
Hmm.
So anyway, I started to build rapport with her, right? And I started to include her, building up assignments like they were the most critical. They weren't, but to her, they were like the most critical things that were going to help this organization.
And she
And
was
she
picked.
needed, and she was big, and she was special. And I kid you not, she became one of my staunchest supporters. I mean, she would just go to the mat for me, you know. And as managers, our instinct is to stay away from them,
For sure.
because they take a lot of time and they're a lot of trouble and they got big mouths. And so we tend to stay away from it, but that's the wrong approach. You have to bring them into the fold, have to do what it takes to show them the vision and make them a part of the vision. It takes time, but in the end, what happens is the troublemaker, because they got followers, they convert their followers.
Mm.
So you don't really have to convert them all. You just pick the one that's the leader, do the work with the rabble rouser, the loudest one, and then they'll take care of the others. You know, so that's when I've learned that over and over and over again. I mean, that's one thing that it has become second nature. I'll give you another example. I was with another organization, and morale was low, and this was for the prosecuting attorney, and to this day he uses this scenario I'm about to tell you now. We came up with this idea of we were going to have the idea contest, and by that we meant that we were going to have the entire staff to find ways to submit ideas on how to make the organization better. And we
Okay.
were going to have what it was called a quality circle then, but it's different now. But we were going to have other staff comprised of staff and management to review the idea and to decide which ones we would implement and which ones we wouldn't. Now, the incredible part about this whole thing was the only reward was a 50-cent balloon that said great idea, that was on a stick, that you could show, display on your desk or cubicle in the office. That was the reward. Within a week, the troublemaker, rabble rouser, the one nobody liked, the gossiper, she submitted an idea that eliminated one whole position and saved the organization $70,000.
Dang.
She did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, okay, if I hadn't brought her in, if I hadn't paid attention to her, she would have been one of those talking against it, the whole thing. And the remarkable thing about it is the balloons became a status symbol. The
Sure.
more balloons you had, the bigger the smile on your face, and you got recognition, without anybody even saying anything. And that's something that's just so simple,
Mm-hmm.
so simple, but it just took off. And the whole organization got better by that. And we had a team that worked together just by doing something like that. And again, because we paid attention and because she got that balloon, she was a whole different person. Now, people, the thing when I'm switching back to the days in DC, and the first chapter is about TVs, uh, fries, and sex, right? In the
Mm-hmm.
work, that's the first chapter. And what I've noticed now is that TVs have been replaced by cell phones. And I know this, that you'll walk up to a customer service desk or someplace and the person's on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
They're using that cell phone. They're TikToking, or they're doing it. So I said that all to say that this stuff is still relevant because it's about, again, leading with empathy, being flexible and adaptable, getting people to understand the vision and buy into the vision. And it's not enough for me to say you can't have that cell phone on the job, which is good. You should say that. You can't have cell phones while you're working on the job in some jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the added part of that is not only do you say you can't have a cell phone, you say why you can't have the cell
Mm-hmm.
phone and how it impacts what the organization is trying to do. And I
Yes.
think that's the part that's always missing. We don't always say this rule is here because it stops us from reaching the goal, the vision in this way, you
Yep.
know. So, yeah, but certain things they have translated from the first time I was a frontline supervisor all the way to the vice president in corporations. It's still people.
All right, before we dive back in, I want to take a moment to talk about something that can take what you're learning today in this episode, as well as our previous episodes, and turn it into something that is real strategic growth for your business. For example, if you're feeling inspired by what you're hearing today, maybe you want to improve your leadership. Maybe you want to refine your systems. Maybe you want to build a more scalable business. Maybe you just want to get out of your own way and break free from those limiting beliefs that may be holding you back. If are you feeling that way, then you are exactly the kind of entrepreneur who will thrive in our strategic shift program. You see, it's designed for women entrepreneurs just like you, who are established, ambitious, and ready to build something that is not just successful today, but is positioned for more growth, long-term value, and freedom, right? That's why we're in business in the first place.
In this program, you'll get proven framework, tools and resources, financial insights, strategic mindset shifts, everything that you need to work methodically through the growth of your business. And the best part is it grows with you. This isn't a course that you just take once and has basic business information in it. This is something that has the actual tools as if you were working alongside a coach to help you build the foundation and continue to build on it year after year as you continue to scale. It's even designed to work with your leadership team once you get to that point in your business. So if you're serious about building a business that is valuable today and continues to grow in value while you're not having to work harder, then check out the strategic shift on Tina-Sue. Look for courses and look for strategic shift.
Hi, amazing listeners. This is Tina Sue. And if you're enjoying this conversation about leadership and financial literacy, I invite you to consider the Strategic Shift Playbook that we offer. It is a step-by-step guide to help you build your business to thrive, scale, and attract opportunity. You can access more information by visiting our website at tina-sue.com or jump in the show notes and grab the link. Now, let's get back to the show for more great insights from Irma. It is people. And I actually learned that whole why thing because of my childhood, believe it or not. So that is one of my strong suits as a leader of like explaining the bigger picture. For one,
Right.
I need that. But when we were growing up, it was like you did stuff, but you didn't know why.
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
my parents were not good about explaining it. My kids will say that I over explained probably everything of like, and here's the impact. And then like, like, and if you don't do
Yeah,
it, here's what could happen 5 years from now.
yeah. The answer I always got from my parents is because I said so.
Yeah, and that doesn't work anymore. Like you
It
said
doesn't
that
work.
earlier. It just you don't just bark orders. That's not leading.
Right.
It's like that's not going to get the
Right.
people to understand the vision and follow you and follow
Right.
the goals. And so a question I have is if we're focusing on the third that ruffles feathers, let's say, and making sure that we're including them, I'd imagine it needs to be equally conscious of not excluding the other 2/3, right? Because it's like
Exactly.
usually the great employees are the ones not recognized, oddly enough.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's where we get into inclusive leadership, which means including everybody. Everybody in the organization needs to feel like they're heard. And you're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely right. The stars, they work no matter what, and they may not be rewarded all the time. And a lot of leadership is about cultivating the team.
Mm-hmm.
And that means cultivating everybody. And when you get good at it, you can tell when an employee needs that little push.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell when there's something wrong, um, and just paying attention to it. Because the bottom line is all of our profit, all of the good things in an organization that we're trying to do, we get to that goal by people. So we have to do what we need. We have to know our team. We have to cultivate our team. We have to include every member of our team. And in the book, I talk about the really extreme bullying that this one employee did. And I see her as one of my biggest failures because no matter what I did, it didn't work with her. And what I learned from that experience was there is a time when you have to say, no,
Yep.
no more. That she's destructive or he or she's destructive to the organization. And I do have to remove that barrier, that person.
Mm-hmm.
But that shouldn't happen without some effort to include them and bring them in and then let them self-destruct. And I say that because when an organization is really working, the people in the organization will take care of a lot of the personnel problems themselves. I mean, they really will,
Agreed.
you
Yep.
know, they
Yes.
will. So a lot of it is just the cultivating of the team, and then knowing this was real hard for me because knowing when you failed with a person, and with her, I just wasn't able to reach her. I just
But
wasn't.
and I'm glad that you brought this whole part up because that was my next question was about, we can't save everyone. So not everyone is going to buy in to the vision and the inclusivity and the goals. Some people, especially some in your book, just wanted to live in chaos and create
Right.
havoc. So what is I have a whole episode on peeing in the pool because that's what I like. That's why I refer to those people. It's like once they pee in the
Yeah.
pool, it kind of affects everyone, right? You
Exactly.
can't get out of the pool.
Exactly.
Like the water is now toxic.
Exactly.
So how do you how do you coach people through knowing when it's time to give up on that employee?
You know, I'm not good at this answer, right? Because I got that never give up mentality, right? And so that's why I see this person that with extreme bullying, I see, I feel like I failed, in some extent. But I think, I think, I knew when she had been given multiple opportunities
Mhm.
and the behavior never improved. And then with a lot of people, they'll be up and down, up and down, up and down. They'll do good for a while and then they'll fall back
Yeah.
into the behavior, and they'll do good for a while and then fall. But with her, it never got good. It never improved.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the things, is that I just wasn't able to reach her because there was never any improvement. Never.
I think that's
Yeah.
interesting that you kind of hold that as as a failure, which I don't see that for you.
Yeah.
I just was working with two clients in the past few months, two totally different clients in different situations where they have an employee they want to let go. And my advice always is like, did you as the leader do everything that you possibly can? Like, have you,
Exactly right.
had the conversations? Have you given the tools and the resources? Have you sat
Exactly.
down and really got to know them and what is the reason that they're not able to do the tasks at hand or whatever it is, right? And
Yes.
neither one of them
Exactly.
were able to say, "Yes, I have done everything." Because it's like, they
Yeah.
irritate you. They're not performing like the other 5 employees, and
Yep.
then you're like, "Oh, I
Yep.
just need to let Sally go." But as a
Yep.
leader, I always say like, can you sleep at night knowing that you've given that employee your all
Key.
before
You hit
you
on
let them go?
key points. Exactly. You must feel like you've done everything you can. And if it's done right, then you're okay, and the person's also okay too. I'll give you
Yeah.
another example. This one guy, he nicest guy. I mean, and that's the other thing, we as leaders, we got to do what we got to do whether we like him or not. We still got to do our job, right? Nicest guy in the world, loved him. Never did his job. All kinds of progressive disciplinary action, just, one after another, one after another, one after another, one after another. Finally, I brought him in my office, and it was the day. And he said to me, "This is my last day, right?"
Yeah.
And I knew then that I had done
Yes.
everything I needed to do, because he knew it was coming. And it
Mhm.
was one of the easiest firings I ever had to do
Yes.
because he knew it was
Yeah.
coming.
Yes, exactly. I have an exact similar story to that. Like same thing. It was the gentleman. By the time one day he walked in and he's like, "Here are my keys," and like, okay, because it
Right,
was like that week I
right,
was going to fire him based on all the
right,
things that we had been working at. He
right,
literally turned in his keys to the office. So I was like,
right,
"Oh,
right,
that's
right.
easy." Yeah,
Yep.
that's when you know you've
And
done your job as the leader.
that's when you know you've done it right. That's true. That's when you
Yes,
know you've done it right. Yeah.
yes, I love
Yeah.
that. Let's talk about the financial piece because you did say a lot of the challenges that some of these the bottom third, if you will, which by the way, folks listening, like if you have a staff of 10, this still applies. So even though you and I had, close to a couple hundred employees, this is also the same. Everything we're talking about today is the same if you just have a handful of staff.
Right. Right.
So you said quite often it has to do with financial
Right. Hmm.
means. So can you give a little more example of that and how, as a leader, you would dive into that and really get to understand where that's coming from for that employee?
Well, are you talking about on the financial literacy side, financial
Yes.
education side? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's some things that we know because there's been a lot of surveys and research about financial education and how employees feel. And we know that there's a good 60% of employees who come to work with some kind of financial difficulty, something on their mind about finances not working. It's exacerbated by single parents and that sort of thing. So and then it's not a stretch to say that that those employees are thinking about their personal problems when they're on the job. It's not a stretch to say that. So then it becomes, how can I help my whole organization in terms of their finances? And the way you do that is through financial education. Now, and you tie it to the company benefits. Because, and I just challenge any HR person or business owner out there or anything, when you go through your benefits package, ask them the question, do you know what a 401k is? Do you know how it impacts your future? Do you know what a health savings account really is?
Mm-hmm.
And when you delve into that, you get the gap because so many people in America do not have the basic financial skills. It's not taught in schools. It's just now being mandated in high schools. So it's not taught in schools. Most of us are doing what our parents did, which a lot of times is not the correct thing to do.
No, my
And
parents
so
just saved it all and said we were poor.
you're good. My parents spent it all, and we
Oh
knew
yeah,
we
no, mine. I remember thinking we were poor, and then it turns out no, they were just putting it on the mortgage, and like they're living their best life in retirement right now. Like, oh,
yeah,
nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, so employers can do a real service to their employees by just having financial literacy workshops, which my company happens to do. But there's all kind of proof that works. That when people have the knowledge about money, they can manage their own finances better, but they also understand the business end better. They start to understand that, yeah, you're in it to make money, and they are a part of that. It's just a clear understanding about money makes the productivity go up, and that's stuff that's being pro talked about now too. And it reduces the stress.
Mm-hmm.
When people feel they're in control of their finances, they got less stress. I mean, that's just
I would agree with 100% of that. And our company, all of our all of our advisors on our team have been business owners prior. So these are not like entry level young
right,
employees, right?
right,
And very overwhelming amount of our staff is in the same boat. So this is not just younger people or in
right.
low income levels. These are like the
Exactly right.
difference. I would say most of them, all of them know what a 401k is, but I've had questions as the VP of finance of like, why would I do a Roth versus a non, like a
Right,
regular,
right.
right?
Exactly.
Those are
Exactly.
some of the questions. And just understanding like where you would invest your money or how that works, right? So
And with
it's everybody.
and with hourly employees, it's even even more necessary to explain the big picture because their incomes are variable a lot of times. And
Hmm.
so it's real important that they understand what they're signing up for and what they miss. One of my clients that I've helped now for a while worked in manufacturing in a place that was offering a match
Hmm.
in the 401k plan.
It's free money.
And Yeah, and she didn't understand it. She worked for this company for 15 years
Oh, and she
without
missed all
signing
that
up
match.
for the, yeah, without signing up for it. They don't understand it, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And it starts with a basic understanding of how money works in America and how and what a credit score really means. The credit industry has done a very good job of making everybody know what their credit score is. One of the first questions I ask uh, in a class is how many people know what their credit score is? Almost every hand goes up.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
now do you
I got
know
my
what it
notice
means?
yesterday. It went up by
Right.
one
Do
point.
you know what it means to your life? Do you know why that's important? Well, do you know why it goes up and down?
Yeah.
Well,
That should be taught in high school. That's when the kids
should be
need to
taught. Right.
understand.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
But
Yep.
there's this big gap that they didn't get it in high school, so now they're young adults or even middle 30s and 40s, and they just don't have that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And employers are key to getting our country financially educated. They
I
are key
agree.
to doing that.
I
Yeah.
agree. And I love that your company does that. And we'll put all of your contact information in the show notes so that people can reach out to you and get more information on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. So that definitely closes the gap between leadership and being at the helm of the ship, if you will, and really having all the employees not just understanding the goals and working towards that, but also can have a little bit less anxiety about their personal life. Which usually, I mean,
Right.
we've all heard and seen the studies that there's only a few things that really stress people out in their life, and finances is one of them.
Yeah, it's at the top almost all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it
usually
is.
it's one of the what is the other one actually for like reasons for divorce? Finance is usually it's like finance and
Yeah,
something
it's up
else.
there. Yeah, I can't
It's up
remember the
there,
others,
right?
but it's up there. Yeah, it's really up
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Even with my
and
parents
and
taking their money away, I remember they're fighting when they fought, it was about money.
yep, yep, and they, you know, without the education, you just really are lost at what to do. You know what
Mhm.
to how to plan it, how to get out of it. You know, um, yeah, it's a real stressor. It definitely is. It's a real stressor for so many people these days. So that's one of the rewards of my business is seeing when the light bulb comes on and oh, I got it. And
Mhm.
then several months or years later, I see him again. I remember. I'm still doing what you
I'm
said.
still doing
You
it.
know that's one of the rewards. Really is
Yes.
one of the rewards. Yep.
I agree.
Um,
My kids got lucky because me being a finance queen and then being
oh
married to a
yeah.
financial advisor, like,
Oh
oh, they knew
yeah.
their credit score before they were out of high school and
That's
knew
exactly
how to
right.
build
That
it.
that
Mhm.
is such a plus. That is
Yeah.
such a plus. It really is.
It's based on, like, my experience and all of that, but so I was like, I'm gonna make sure my kids are financially independent,
Yeah. That's
especially
so
my daughter
important.
ain't relying on no man.
Yep. You got it, girl.
That
The
was
lady after
definitely
my own
instilled in
heart.
her early on.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And you
Yes.
know, the other benefit to employers embracing financial literacy for their staff is it builds loyalty. And the reason I say that, from my own personal experience when I was working at IBM Corporation, there was a email that came across the desk and it said something to the effect that we want you to be financially stable even if you don't stay with IBM. And so we're going to pay for you to have a session with a certified financial advisor for free, right?
Mhm.
So I did it, and to this day, 30 years later, 25, 30 years later, same guy. You know, I
That's
did
awesome.
it based on that one thing. And what it said to me was that this employer cared enough about me to personally invest in my personal well-being. And so
Mhm.
to this day, I am one of IBM's fiercest, loyalist people. And I've been gone from there
Oh,
forever. But just the way they treated the whole me, to say,
mhm.
okay, we want you to be okay. We want you to be successful, not just with us, but in your personal life. And they put their money where their mouth was for, anybody who, and that's all we can do is put the opportunity there. If people choose not to do it, then that's a choice that they made. But to
Mm-hmm.
give employees the opportunity to learn and to grow um, is a good thing.
I love that. I love that. I love everything you shared about the leadership and the tying it to the financial literacy. What are your final words for our listeners?
Well, the final word is to lead fearlessly, to look at the whole person, to not ignore the troublemaker, and just
Actually,
to
embrace the
be
troublemaker.
to embrace yeah, at least for a little while, to embrace
Mm-hmm.
the trouble, yeah, and just to have an inclusive environment that allows everybody to be heard. And it really isn't as hard as that might sound. It's actually just investing the time in your team to get the vision that you want. And the book is available on our website. It's available on Amazon, Audible. Our website is onyx2rise.com. We've got a couple of free things on there. We've got
Mm-hmm.
a leadership white paper that outlines the 7 inclusive leadership principles that we use. We've got a money mindset quiz,
Love
which
that.
would be interesting for you to see because we all hold different myths about money, things that we learned that just are not true.
Mm-hmm.
So we got the money mindset quiz for free. So really, I've enjoyed our talk, and hopefully we can keep talking.
Yes, I appreciate you and all of what you shared today. Thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
Everything that you mentioned, we'll make sure is in the show notes so they can grab it.
Okay, sounds good. It was a pleasure talking to you. We're
You
kindred
too.
spirits in this leadership thing.
I agree. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. The Women Choosing Growth Show is not just another podcast. It's a tribe of women helping each other grow. So please, share this podcast with all the women entrepreneurs that you would love to see succeed. If you'd like to know more about customized business advising through Cultivate Advisors, download business tools, or sign up for upcoming events, visit www.womenchoosinggrowth.com. Once again, that's www.womenchoosinggrowth.com. Remember, we are in this together. See you on the next one.